This is Lieutenant Tom Warwick. I'm with the Memphis Police Department Bomb Unit, and you're listening to The Best in Blue, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
We're back with you here on Best in Blue on the KUDZUKIAN Network, and myself, DC, and Leo, we're sitting here with our very own director, Mike Rallings, Police Director of the Memphis Police Department, and guess what? We have been talking to him about not only our police interactions, but we've also talked about some of those, what people perceived to be some of those negative things that our officers are out there just willy-nilly, and it's not. We've got a good, safe department, and they're trying to keep us safe. But we want to also get into, let's talk about how do we get our community involved more so, Director, in when we have these interactions with citizens. You know, the body-worn cameras are out there with all of our officers out there on the street, but you still got these negative connotations from citizens that say, oh, no, they're wrong, they're doing this. How do we get there?
Yeah. Well, you're always going to have some of that.
Sure.
I think it's just human nature. And, you know, sometimes officers make a bad decision, make a bad call, and sometimes they do wrong.
Yeah.
And we discipline officers for that. So let me talk about a couple of things. So think about this. In 2017, our officers were involved in a very large number of citizen encounters. 895,000 calls are self-initiated activities. So a call is where the dispatcher gives an officer a call. It could be a suspicious person call. A self-initiated activity is a call that they put themselves on. They could see, an abandoned car and pull over to check the car. They could stop someone for a speeding ticket. That's a self-initiated activity. 895,000 calls are self-initiated activities in 2017. Those calls involved 2.5 million police officers. So I want you to think about that. There's a unbelievable large amount of an interaction with the public, but in 2017 there were only 4 officer-involved shootings. So given the high number of encounters with citizens, there's rarely any use of force, much less the use of deadly force with a Memphis police officer. And 4 was a very low number, lowest number I've ever seen.
Wow.
We average about 8 a year, but 8, when you divide 8 by 2.5 million, you probably have a better chance of being struck by lightning than you do in having some type of lethal encounter with a Memphis police officer. We made 62,000 arrests last year. Again, we rarely had any situation where an officer had to use force, much less deadly force. So use of force incidents are down, or resisting arrest complaints were down. So this narrative that officers are out there, you know, like you say, doing willy-nilly things is not a correct narrative. It's a false narrative.
Yeah. The cameras, of course, are a deterrent just as well. The body cameras are something to help protect not only the citizen but also the officer, right?
That's right. So the body-worn camera does both. It protects the police officer and protects the citizen. So if you think about, we're one of the largest deployment of body-worn cameras in the nation. We're certainly the largest in Tennessee. There's no one else that comes close. We're the largest police agency in Tennessee. So we've deployed 1,650 body-worn cameras. Those body-worn cameras have produced 2.4 million videos. These are separate videos. 600 in-car videos with our in-car video systems, because there are 576 of those in cars. And then when you think about hours, 595,000 hours of body-worn cameras, 600,000 hours of in-car video. That is a lot of video. So the issue that people raise, that police officers aren't turning on their body-worn cameras, is another lie. You know, that's a flat-out lie. You don't produce 2.4 million videos if they're not turning the cameras on. And yes, we've charged a handful of police officers. 50 officers were found in violation of our policy. 50. 2.4 million, 50.
Wow.
So a handful of officers have been found in violation, but here's what people should realize. we hold officers accountable for when they don't follow policy.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the corrective action of if they aren't following policy, because they are held accountable to some degree according to the information that we reviewed in the presentation. So what is an example of a corrective action?
Well, I mean, officers are just like, people going to work every day. If you show up working late, the boss is probably going to write you up. If you do something egregious enough, you could lose your job. Well, the police officers are held accountable probably much more so and highly scrutinized more than our average citizen. So, for instance, officer could get a suspension.
Sure.
They get days off without pay.
Yeah.
Or they could, be sent to additional training, or they could be reprimanded. In a serious situation, they could face termination.
Yeah.
So anywhere from a written reprimand to termination, or a reprimand to termination is the range of discipline.
Well, I think with 1,650 body-worn cameras, just about 600 in-car cameras, all of this footage has got to be stored somewhere, because there's a system, and I think I remember back in the budget where they were talking they need so many more millions of dollars just to even store this footage.
Yes.
So it's not going away anywhere anytime soon, is it?
No. Well, that video is stored, and if it had any evidentiary value, it will be stored indefinitely. And when you talk about it, it's kind of like the data plan on your phone.
Yeah.
Your data costs money. So we're spending several $1 million on maintaining these body-worn camera in-car video programs, and also the storage of video. But it's the world we live in, and we have to do it.
I like the way you said it, Director. It's the world we live in.
Yes.
DC and Leah, we'll be right back with you here on the Best in Blue and the KUDZUKIAN Network, talking to our very own Director, Mike Rallings of the Memphis Police Department.
I'm your host, Cynthia Daniels.
And I'm your co-host, Williams Brack.
So we're going to be interviewing business owners about their journey. What made them leave their 9 to 5 and just go out and create their own brand? Mindset.